Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing fine. Just wait a minute, I'll just set it up everything. So, hello everyone, I hope you all are doing fine. And guess what? Today we are doing our second live, which is about early history of Britain, 4th century BC to 11th century AD. So, one thing I would like to, tell you that from this section they don't ask question, only one type of question come, and that is what? The order, the chronological order they ask. And recently they asked only one or two questions from all 5 years. Sometime they ask about, this work is influenced by which old English text. So these kind of thing, they ask. And this time, the question paper that I have, which was cancelled right on June, that was actually only one question came, and that was about the chronological order. And from the past, like 5 to 6 years, they're asking same kind of question. One question: there will be Beowulf somewhere in your chronological order, right? So only this thing that you have to consider: the date of Beowulf. They don't ask deep questions. They asked once also about the alliteration and caesura, all these pauses, and these things, right? And also they asked question about kenning. So this trend is actually kind of ended, that they are not asking any questions from early history. If they ask, it'll be about Beowulf, not even about the plots, what happened in Beowulf, all the stories. They don't ask. They're asking about the chronological order. So I hope you all are ready, and let me see how you are there in the live. You hi in the comment box. So we'll begin. It's not gonna be long, but we'll cover everything. Everything, whatever is there in early Britain history and also in the literature. So basically, we are focusing on the literature part. And of course, about the form, we are gonna talk. And so let's begin. So, first thing first, what you see here is the timeline of Old English period. So in that timeline, you have to, remember this date, 1066, very important, and about Beowulf, and sometime little bit about Bede. There are other texts, like some elegies are there, so they might, ask, in sometime they'll ask, but I don't think that they are going to ask about the elegies and all. But for your reference, you should know what else are there. So we are beginning with the timeline of Old English period, right? So the period, remember, it starts from where? 5th century, and it goes to 1066, which is Battle of Hastings or conquest. It's the same date but different name: Norman conquest, and another is what? Battle of Hastings. So that you should remember. And it begins where? When the Roman left England in 410. They, what they left? The culture behind it, kind of semi civilized Celts. So the English arrived as savior but remained as conqueror till when? 450 to 600. So major historical event, what happened in this event that influenced literature? First, Christianization. But you don't see any theme of Christianization before Beowulf. It is after Beowulf that you see the influenced on English literature, starting with Kent. So of course, you have to remember about the Danes who came in 9th century, and of course the rise of Wessex, King Alfred, that we'll talk about, and ascension of Danish dynasty, accession, and then we have uh, English court before Norman conquest. So what basically we are covering from 5th century to 11th century, which is 1066, and will solve all the questions that they have asked. And the characteristics, if you would want to know, in English, early English literature, it was, you know one thing you should really focus, that poetry is the one which came first, and then prose. So early poems like Whiteseth, Beowulf are important, that you should remember only this work, that is Beowulf. Caedmon, as you know, another important and one of the first or known one is Caedmon, is the only poet mentioned by name. Wolf, on the other hand, is just hinted at through some verses. So many old English poet, what they were anonymous, so they don't know who's written what, right? And imitative nature of old English. Most of the text is a kind of imitation. Imitation in the sense is that they are copying or maybe the translation of old Latin text. So basically, there was nothing original, they were all adaptation or maybe translation of old Latin verses or text. And the common translation include what mostly it was about, saints' life, biblical text, and practical works. Practical works in the sense about what is happening in the church. So, the second hand nature of Old English writing is often seen as its most disappointing feature. But of course, it was a starting period, that's why it's important, right? And poets like we know Wolf and Caedmon, and prose writer like Alfred, and another one is Venerable Bede. Very important that in sometime they have asked question based on that. So basically you have to focus on three people here. One is Beowulf, and the second, uh, Alfred the Great, you can say, and the third is Bede, and little bit about Wolf. That these things you have to remember, and nothing else is coming in your exam. So let's move forward. And survival of old English manuscript. So most of the manuscripts kind of preserved in couple of places, like there is one Beowulf manuscript, another is Junian, and third is Exeter books, which preserves what Wolf's poem, and Junian is what Caedmon's poem. And these things, if you visit museums in England, you will find, you'll have a glimpse of those manuscript as well. Another is Vercelli book, and they contain what Elaine and other elegiac poems. So, when we talked about this literature, there are some things that you should, know, like the Celts, Romans, and Britannia, Anglo-Saxon, King Arthur, Battle of Hastings. So these things, if you just have a, briefly think, let me see if anyone is there. Okay, two people are there. Okay, nice. Let's move again. So the Celts, first thing you should know in Old English or early British history is that they are originated in Central Europe, including they came from France, Germany, and Czech Republic, and they are first mentioned by Greek authors, later by Romans, and migrated around, remember the date, 400 BC to northern Italy and eastern Europe. And they arrived in England or in Britain in around 1000 BC. The language, very important, Welsh, Cornish, and Gaelic. And they ask question about the language, maybe about the Midland Anglo-Saxon language or this Cornish, Welsh, and Gaelic. That we'll talk about that. And Romans in Britain. After Celts, there were actually, the Roman they ruled Britain from 43 AD to 410 AD, and they introduced like Latin, urban life, and Christianity. Right. Remember the date 443 to 410, and the sources of Roman life you can see in Caesar writings and Tacitus. Then we have archaeological finds like Hadrian's wall coin that you have just a little bit idea that you should have. Anyway, Britannia, how this name came. So the national symbol of Britain is that Britannia. Who is Britannia? Helmeted female warrior with a trident and shield. First appeared on Roman coin 2nd century. Then we have Anglo-Saxons. They are settled in Britain after Roman left, and it was around 410. Brought their language, forming the basis of modern English. An Anglo-Saxon period lasted until 1066, which is your Norman conquest or Battle of Hastings. One of the important figure in English history or in literary genre, if you ask, was the King Arthur. Most of the work is adapted King Arthur's figure. So he's a kind of legendary British king, possibly based on 5th century or 6th century leader. Mostly you might have heard about the stories about the adventure of knights, or maybe the round table, or Gawain the great. All these things, they are all associated with King Arthur. Then we have important event, that Battle of Hastings, which happened in 1066, and it was a fight between William of Normandy and the King Harold of England. And who won? Harold was killed, Normans won, and leading to Norman rule in England, and significantly impacted English culture, English literature, and the society and European history. And very important thing that they ask question, if they are going to ask, it will be from this section, like Old English poetry, their form and their style. So basically it was alliterative verse, very important, that all most of the English poems are based on this form, and which is alliterative verse. Alliterative means the repetition, right? And the most distinctive feature of Old English poetry is the alliteration, the main ornamental device to indicate meter. Other forms are there that I'll tell you one by one, right? So alliteration, so what do you think is alliteration? And whatever the ideas you have, you can just write in the chat box. So alliteration and assonance is very important, and if you would want to know what is alliteration, then you just have a look on this thing. It was mostly found in Germanic language like Old English, Beowulf. There was a question based on that also once, and like which kind of a style was there in Beowulf. So basically, most of the verse is alliterative. Old High German, Old Saxon, or Old Norse. Right. Key example, we have the work Beowulf. Then later in the Middle English or in the age of Chaucer, we have Piers the Plowman, which also you know took this style alliteration. Then we have Sir Gawain the Green Knight and alliterative Morte d'Arthur. They all use the same. The next thing they ask about the kenning, and kenning is what? A compound figurative expression replacing a single word noun, typically in Old Norse, Icelandic, and Old English. So, canis is a kind of figurative expression, right? As we say right now, metaphor, that kind of thing is kenning. Then we have litotes, and what is this? It is a form of dramatic understatement used for ironic effect. Right, a form of dramatic understatement, not kind of overstatement like in we have in hyperbole. It's kind of opposite that litoids that you can think of with the ironic effect. And Kashura, we already discussed in our previous session. What is that? It's a pause. If you just remember this word, pause, your Kashura is kind of done, right? So a pause, this keyword is very important that you should remember, and especially it happens in a line, or you can just simply say, if there is a poem going on, this is a line. If there is a comma, and then this will be your Kashura. So I hope you understand this thing, right? Then we have pagan poems, and there are pagan poems like Witzlith, Waldier, the fight in Finnesburg, the Battle of Bronnenburg, and the Battle of Malden. That you should not have, I mean, you should know what happened and what kind of poems they are, but in the exam, they are not asking from that. And dramatic monologue includes, we have monologue like the wanderer, the seafarer, and Dior's complaint that we'll talk about in details later in this section. And we have, and they are all in founded what? Which manuscript? Exeter book. Very important figure that I told you in beginning, right? That we should remember a couple of figure, and from that, this Caedmon is very important. So Caedmon's story is what? He one night, in his dream, a muse came and showered a gift on him, and he suddenly started singing or writing poetries. Right. So Caedmon, he was basically a herdsman who was turned poet by divine inspiration. He basically wrote what? Biblical paraphrases, and he's the earliest known English poet. The other's name we don't know, other than Wolf, right? And he's a Northumbrian animal caretaker, a Whitby Abbey under Abbasent, that you should just have a basic idea about it. And initially he was unable to sing or compose any kind of poetry, but learned in a dream as a recorded. It was where this story was there in Venerable Bede's Historia Ecclesiastic, which was written in 731. That we'll discuss after Caedmon and Wolf. Right, and the poems that what we know, they were in Junian manuscript and paraphrases of Genesis, Exodus, and Daniel. Right, and he also became monk, produced Christian religious poetry. So what basically you should remember, the Caedmon, who was kind of turned poet by divine inspiration when he was dreaming, and his work is found in this manuscript. And also you should remember the date of his life span. And again, only surviving poem that you can see is the Caedmon's hymns that you will find, right? uh, okay, then we have Sign Wolf group. So Sign Wolf is known for what? These poems: Christ, Juliana, Eleni, and the Fates of Apostle. You should know that he has written some poem, and it is not kind of directly that it is by Sign Wolf, but seems like through the style and through the, so all the scholar found out that he might have written all these poems. The Phoenix, The Dream of the Road, The Riddle. Steinwolf poetry is more scholarly with better expression, and deeper ideas likely from 10th century. And Anglo-Saxon Christian poet he was from the 9th century, known for four signed religious poem, and they are, I'll tell you, first is the Faiths of Apostles, 122 line only. If you wanna, you can just read English, uh, modern version. Christ, the Ascension. Then we have Juliana, which has 731 line, and Aline, 1321 line. Story simple. In It was the retelling of the Saint Juliana who suffered for her Christian faith. Aline, on the other hand, recounts Saint Helena's discovery of true cross, and it was translated directly from Latin language. Then we have very important work is Beowulf. They ask question based on that, but what they ask is the chronology order, nothing else. So that you should know. So Beowulf, it is, before that they were asking mostly, sometime they asked about the plot, when it was written, which language it was written, and so on, other stuff, and some plot like who killed who and what happened and all these plots. So basically you should remember when it was written. Second is the basic plot, what is Beowulf and what event happened, and of course which language it was written. So if you want to go deep, you can also read some translation poem like in same as Hine Beowulf or J.R.R. Tolkien translation, that you can go and have a look if you are more interested into it, right? So the first thing we should know about Beowulf, which is very important and in exam comes, which is the chronology, and the date is 975 to 120. So basically it is between that it was produced or written, and likely originated before the English invasion. So there are very few themes or matter about the Christianity in Beowulf. There was a question based on that what kind, what uh, elements were there in Beowulf. So there was like A, B, C, D option, and the question was like, Christianity was there and all this stuff, right? So it was basically a pagan in nature, and predating Christian conversion. So whatever the work you are seeing after Beowulf, we have this theme, Christianity. But before Beowulf, there is no mention of Christianity. So the first time, some people, some scholar are kind of, there was in controversy that there was some theme of Christianity in Beowulf. So we'll go with that there was some theme of Christianity in Beowulf, because as we know, Beowulf is what it is, a kind of pagan poem, but there is some mentioning about the conversion, so there are some theme about the Christianity as well. So possibly a collection of bardic tales compiled by one hand, written in which language? This is very important, is West Saxon dialect, that you should know. So we have what to remember: the date, the Christian theme, and West section dialect. That's all that you have to know. And some basic plot, like what happened. So plot is simply what there was a terror in, Grendel's terror for 12 years. And for that evil monster, what happened? This monster was kind of, terrorizing Denmark, killing all the soldiers of King Horthagar. And to solve this problem, Beowulf comes because he was a friend of King Horthagar. And when he came, and he was actually the Prince of Geats, and he sailed to Denmark with his men to defeat Grendel. And eventually, what happens? He's the hero, right? So, obviously, Grendel's will be defeated. So, that's exactly what happened. And Grendel's defeated. Beowulf fights Grendel, tearing off his arm, which leads to Grendel's death. Now, the second thing happened that Grendel's mother came for revenge, and Grendel's mother attacked, but Beowulf tracks her to her cave and kills her too. But right, and then he returned to Geats, hailed as hero, and Beowulf returned to the Geats with gifts from the Danes. And the final battle, after this battle, again one thing happened that after 50 years, when Beowulf was not little but older, and he goes and fights with fire breathing dragon, and with one of person with with his side, that was Wiglaf. Before, like 5 6 years ago, they asked question about Wiglaf, that who was with him when he Beowulf killed the dragon. It was Wiglaf. So that you should also know. Who knows that they might ask, but this is important. So Beowulf slays the dragon, but what happens? He suffered a wound, and eventually he died as a hero, and that's how the poem ends, with his funeral. So that's the basic plot. Three things happen. Beowulf, right, kind of kills Grendel. Then Grendel mother comes. Again he killed. Then became the king. And then what happens? Another dragon comes, and he killed the dragon too, but suffered with a wound. And he killed a dragon with who? Another character that you should know, Wiglaf. And he was wounded and died, and poem ends with the funeral. That's the whole plot of Beowulf that you should know. And as I told you in the beginning, what other matter you will remember? You should remember the date, the Christian theme, and the dialect which it was written. Another thing it was written that you should know, that it was alliteration, alliterative vibe, that you should know. Got it. So feature is what we have so much cannings, kind of metaphor, and the strong rhythm, and of course alliteration. Reflect seafaring, warrior culture, vivid scenes and battles. So this thing you can use. So when there is alliteration, there will be caesura. So sometimes they might ask like which form, you know, and style is there. So it A B C D question. So as we know, it's a Christian theme, but we are talking about here form, right? So maybe one option in Canning, second option would be pause that we talked about Kesura. Then there will be alliterative verse, alliteration, right, and litort. So if it is a poem, there must be that too. So these things, if they ask, you have to put all of these kenning, kesura, alliteration, other Christian theme and everything, right? So that is what actually there to remember in Beowulf, not more than that. We'll have a final note uh, that you should make actually, uh, that you will remember. Otherwise, I'll just make a note that what is important and give it to you. Right. And there are questions also PYQ that will solve at the end of the class. So, and the significance is what? It is also killer epic. That should also remember. So in that E statement, you can add vernacular as well. Vernacular is a kind of local language that you can just say, right? And it has single manuscript, and that manuscript is itself, Beowulf manuscript called MS Whiteless. Analysis: if you analyze the poem, as you know, it has Germanic theme, Christian elements, and of course Germanic religion, which is we know as a pagan, right? Then we have mythology and Beowulf's battle, good and evil. We have that Christian element, and of course seen as Christian allegory. We have other two important thing that if you want to read in modern, we have J.R.R. Tolkien, and then we have Seamus Heaney. These two translation is famous that you have to know. Right. So these are the things that you need to remember in Beowulf itself. Then we have Old English elegies. Remember, the form is the same. It could be, you know, there will be alliteration, and then there will be metaphor, which is kenning, right? And then there will be a pause in the line, that is shura, that you should know. And what else could be there in the poem, old poem? Maybe vernacular. Okay, these things, everything in the poem should be there. And no, you should know that poem came before the prose. So Old English elegies, which were all in what, Exeter book, and mostly they are written in riddles, religious text, and wisdom poetry. So also you can just write a riddle. So in your note, it should be like this. So we have the first, the rune, which is basically what, an ancient city, and juxtaposing its former glory with its present rune, likely referencing Bath. You just go with the rune name. The wanderer is what, a homeless exile laments the loss of his lord and worldly pleasure, but ultimately reflects on divine hope and the transience of earthly. So, what you basically remember, these names, that's all. Seafarer, about the life, hardship of life at sea, and then wife's lament, it's about the despair of a wife. Then we have another, Wolf and Eid Walker. You just have to remember the name, that's all. Then husband's message, basically a message to his wife or betrothed. He was actually recounting his exile and professing his love, urging her to reunite with him. And now we come to the which section, which is prose. So in prose, you should know only few names. One is Venerable Bede, and another is Alfred. So if you are, if suppose you encounter a question from, and Old English prose, you will have to remember these two, right? Venerable Bede and King Alfred. So, for the Bede, you should know one thing, that he was an Anglo-Saxon monk. So, as he's a monk, he mostly write about the church and this stuff, all the translation, Latin work, and all, right? And he was born in Monkworthmouth Zero Monastery, that you should just have a idea about it. And he wrote around 40, but we have only few books left. Survived a plague in 686. Remember about the bead date, very important, 670 to 735. And his most famous work is this, the ecclesiastical history of English people. So it mostly about the English people, their culture, their church, and all the stuff. And here itself, we found about who Caedmon story, right? That he suddenly got gift from the muse in his dream, and he started singing the next morning, or right next morning, right? And chronicles that conversion of English from paganism. So obviously there will be Christianity theme, and key source of the Anglo-Saxon history, that whatever we know is because of this dude, right? And it was, remember that if we just talk about his work, it is divided into 5 books, and they are what? Book 1 about Roman, then book 2 604 to 633, then book 3 633 to 665, then book 4 664 to 698, and book 5 687 to 731, right? So, and it is about Alfred. Now next we'll talk about the King Alfred, second important prose writer in our Old English. And he was, as you know, King of Essex. Remember the date, very important. Sometime they might ask about the order, right? And you will know him better with this particular word. I hope I have written it, yes. So basically, why he is important, if you just read his statement, just this, you will have a better idea what kind of person he was and why he is very significant in the literary contribution in English literature. So commonly is that. So clean, completely has ruin fallen on the English nation that very few were there this side, the humber that could understand the service in English or declare forth an epistle, errand writing out of Latin into English. So basically, what the Latin was declining. People, kind of stopped, reading Latin, or the trend was kind of going down. So what basically he did is saying that. So that was his statement, that English is declining and Latin is declining. So the thing I'm doing here, and what my suggestion is, and I think that not many beyond Humber were there. So few such were there that I cannot think of single one to the south of the Thames where it began to rain. So the God Almighty be thanked that we now have any to teach install. Therefore I bid thee, thou do as I believe that thou wilt. So he basically is saying that uh, he's going to kind of translate the work. So this thing is happening in England, and if I translate, then the trend will come and people will start again show some interest in the work, or in the Latin, or in the Bible, right? And likely authored these things Pope Gregory's Pastoral Care. It was a translation. Of course, he translated Bede's this ecclesiastical history, very important. That's how we know. And his court, and he actually his court became center of learning. So as you recall, if you have watched that series, Vikings, and there is in latest series that it is about King Alfred, that what he was doing, how he was translating with another pagan guy, and that pagan converted into Christianity, and he was King Alfred taught translate how to read Latin, all these stuff. that you can, uh, if you're watching, then it will be easy for you to understand. Right, so that is all about King Alfred, and he was, as you know, the king who ruled the land, right? The other literary figure that you should have just basic idea, just remember, that there were other than Bede and King Alfred. It was Elfric, Wulfstan, and Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. So it was actually initiated by King Alfred. Four versions are there, and they covers what English history from invasion to the mid 12th century. So basically, that's all are there to remember. Not much of the thing. We summarize what we need to remember is. Battle of Hastings, which was in 1066, that you should remember. The date is starting from it was 5th century. That's what you need to remember. And then we talked about some poems, some elegies that they don't ask. We know. Also talked about some collection of the poems which were collected in some manuscript. We talked about manuscript that you should know. Then we have the form of the poem, what kind of form is there, and we talked about also Beowulf, and what in Beowulf that we know is the date, as we know, 7th to 10th century. Between that they have it is written 7th or 8th, you can just say. Then we have also discussed what kind of form and language it was written. So language also you should know, the form you should know, what was it written, and then you should know a little bit about the plot. Then which theme, only one theme that you have to remember about the Christianity. Okay, and it is as a pagan story. So there are a Christianity theme, how you will recognize it, if there is good and evil. So there was fight between good and evil, so we have the theme of Christianity. Another character in Beowulf that you should know is the Wiglaf, right? And what else you can remember from that is we talked about and also events that you can remember. First Grendel, then Grendel's mother, and then the dragon. Right, so these things that you have to remember, especially the date. And then we talked about Caedmon. Caedmon is a story what like he was a blind, and then suddenly he started singing and doing writing poems. Then we should know about Bede and his work and his history of the England. Then we can just think of Alfred. That's all are there that you should know, right? So that's basically what we have learned today, and now we'll move on to some order. So remember Britain, Romans in Britain that time, then departure of Britain, Romans, then Anglo-Saxon settlement, Christianization of the English, then King Arthur came, then Caedmon, then Venerable Bede, Elfric, Wulfstan, Danish dynasty, Anglo-Saxon, Alfred the Great, Battle of Battenberg, and the Battle of Maldon, and we have at the end conquest, Norman conquest, and some important work that you should remember the order. Sometime they might ask in the question, but basically when you get the chronological order type question, they ask first British Beowulf, and then the later came. For in that case, our Beowulf is in the second place, and first is Caedmon Hin. Then we have Venerable Bede history, then Anglo-Saxon chronicles. Then we have Alfred translation, because Alfred came later, right? Because he translated Venerable Bede, so he should be after Venerable Bede, right? Then we have all the poems, right? All these together you can just think of. Uh, Then we have Sign Wolf poem, ninth to 10th. So this basically all the poems in between 10th century, right? So it is covered, right, everything. And then we have all the battles, and at the end we have 1066. So that's the whole thing you should know, right? Done. So guys, that's all in the text. Now we'll solve the previous year question from 2019 to 20. So basically you'll see that we don't have much questions in this. So wasting time reading and getting confused with so many dates and all, you should not waste so much time in this section. So there are basically 6 to 7 questions that they have asked in previous uh, whole net for the of 6 years. So that we'll just discuss here. Right. So first was, again, the question was about the chronological. As we know, Beowulf we have discussed. So that is first Divine Comedy, which is later work in the Middle English. This work also Middle English, and this is in also Chaucer's age, Middle English. So if you know this, that A is first, then you will be able to answer your question. Very easy. Just have a look and you'll answer, right? An explanation is there. The dates are there. Beowulf, as we know, 10th century, right? Crafted between. Then we have the Summa Theologia, which is again it was written in after 12th century. Then we have Dante's Divine Comedy, which was written in 14th century or 1308 or 1308. We have at the end Geoffrey Chaucer. Why you can put Chaucer later than Divine Comedy? Because some of the work he adapted from this Italian narrative poem. So obviously Chaucer will come below Dante. So that you should know, right? There was nothing original in our Middle English, some kind of thing. All are basically from Latin from Latin. They were all translation, or maybe they are inspired from Italian or French. So it was the early period of our English language. So the work, if there is some, they are mentioning some other you know works from other literature, you should know that it should be before is Chaucer. So we have lot Le Morte d'Arthur. The first original thing in English was Morte d'Arthur. Not why I'm saying original, because it was England's figure. So most of the work, they are based from Morte d'Arthur adventure. We have knights, right? We have Guinevere, we have Lancelot, Merlin, Knights of the Round Table, and all these things. And they are all reached completion around William Caxton. See, so my personal view is only you're going to get a question from chronological order. And what will it be there? First is the Beowulf. If you know, then your half of the question is solved. Question 2, they asked about the language across time in the history that changes the language. What does it call? It is called diachronic. So from Beowulf to Middle English to Shakespeare, what is basically happening? The language is changing, right? The study of language across time. So when we talk about time, it is chronic, right? And diachronic. So through word you will understand we are talking about diachronic. So our answer is diachronic, and it involves evolution and the changes in language over time. Very important. That is called diachronic, right? Meaning it could be words, meanings, grammar, phonetics, all the in this includes, this study includes. Example, the transformation of English from Old English texts like Beowulf through Middle English in Chaucer. So, through that, you will understand that we are talking about, if we are just, studying the phonetics and, this language linguistic, then you should know that we are talking about diachronic. Right? Very simple, easy to remember. And we have put Ted Hughes Woodbu. And why we have put? Because there was a name mentioned here about the Beowulf and also Sir Gawain and Green Knight. So they are not asking direct question, they are asking indirectly. So Woodbo is what? A volume named after the wild man of woods of Sir Gawain the Green Knight. So you know that guy, whose head Sir Gawain Knight, took off in one blow. Remember? So that is there. Right. These explanation, if you want it, you'll get in our course, and also in explanation when you solve this question in the app or in that I'll share the quiz with you, because for some time there will be like three live classes or two live classes in a day. We'll post only one live class in YouTube for public views. And if you wanna really, if you're serious that you want to prepare, then you should join this course, because we are not teaching any waste stuff or any some so many, and then keep you kind of occupied in reading all the things, and these things, not there. We are just focusing on what they have asked and what they are going to ask, not more than that. And very small simple note, not so big books. So people are talking about, is there any book that everything includes? Well, there will be a book which has everything that you will get after the course. We'll just compiled a book with, based on our PYQ, which is fully dedicated to UGC net. To the point note, no bullshit, just proper stuff that you will get. So if you haven't joined the course, you should join as soon as possible, because we have already, you know, we had two live sessions right now, and we'll just move forward. And we have already finished our Old English. Now we are going to jump into the Middle English and Chaucer, then Shakespeare, all the thing. So every questions will be there, questions are there, that you should know that what they have asked and what you should focus on. No other stuff that you should, because in 6 months, if you want to remember or if you want to read everything, it will be kind of something kind, that will keep you in your grip. So there, you are not controlling the language or the English literature. Actually, it literature is controlling you. You will easily get distracted, you will easily go and read more, and maybe you'll find pleasure reading it. But if you're preparing net, short and sweet and to the point notes that you should focus on. Don't get distracted unless you clear the net, right? And there was one question about Beowulf in this particular passage. Like, in the sense, one can think of literature less as some inherent quality or set qualities displayed by certain kinds of writing, all the way from Beowulf to Virginia Woolf. So for that word we have put it. So basically it's not question from this section, it's just there. So the question they are asking about the Beowulf, what is the implication of this statement? In this sense, one can think of literature less some inherent quality or set of qualities displayed by certain kinds of writing, all the way from Beowulf to Virginia. So number of ways in which people relate themselves to writing. So basically, the answer is literature has values that may be interpreted differently by different subject position. The question number 5, the voyage and travel of Sir John Mandeville were written in Midland language. So it was, this question is from the 14th century. So we haven't reached there yet, but I have put it because it was talking about Northumbria dialect, which is before Midland. So that's why we have put it here. So which of the following authors have been correctly matched with their work? Why we have put it? Because of the this thing. Molly Keeney, sorry, this work, The Norman Conquest. And for this we have put, so we have basically, you see, who wrote, The Norman Conquest. There are multiple books with that the same title. The book may be referring by Mark Morris as non-fiction. So So remember that. That's why we have put this question. Not so many questions come. There is question from linguistic and the language. Like which word came from where? The source of language borrowed. Right. So we have caste, which is, taken from Portuguese. Then we have beef, which is from the French, blunder from Norse, and flak from German. And other points, that there are some options that they have asked in net. The ritual to romance, as we know, it is written by Jesse Weston, and it is the examination of the roots of King Arthur legends. That's why we have put it there. The act of King Arthur and his noble knights, it is a retelling written by Steinbeck, right? And then the death of King Arthur, it was recently written, and it was the legend, subtitle of it, right? And Battle of Hastings, same name, Norman Conquest. It is also a book written by Mark Morris. Other possible questions that we are not going to discuss here, that actually kind of practical question that I made for you to practice all these things. So we have total 25 questions. Like here, indicate the correct chronological of the following event. So which event came first? So as we know, Anglo-Saxon period first came. Then what happened? Norman conquest. Then what happened? Angevin Empire, Plantagenet dynasty, and wars of that. This is very difficult. These are very difficult questions through the order. But in question they don't ask. They only will ask about your sometime Norman conquest, or maybe some other event, or wars of the roses they might ask. So for your practice, it's there with the correct answer and also explanation. So there are 25 questions that you will discuss. I'll just focus on possible questions based on poetry form. Of course, there are work of the chronological order that you should have. These are for your practice. I'll provide a link to practice in the description box. Right now it's not there, but I will add it later, or you just follow our Telegram channel or WhatsApp. I'll give you the link. You can go there and solve the question. So Historia, again the same thing is there. I wanted to tell you these question. Wait a minute. The form. Yes, from 15. So from 60. See, the first question, you see, most distinctive feature of Old English. So as we know, what happened was there rhyme in the Old English? Rare. What was there? Alliterative. So our answer is alliterative. If you have you know watched the session, you will answer all these questions. Which of the following works is not an example of alliterative verb? We have Beowulf, as we know. This is not because it has different style of form. Piers the Plowman, definitely not. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, no. So our answer is this. Okay, another question is there. What is a kenning in Old English? What does kenning mean? We already discussed about it, that it's a figurative expression, right? Our answer is A itself. Which term refers to the form of dramatic under? We are talking about understatement, not kind of overstatement or hyperbole. So opposite of that, what is that? It is C. Easy to understand. Sasura is what? A comma in the line. Canning is what? Your metaphor or figurative expression. Alliteration word is what? Repetition. Like in a line, many texts might encounter the same word in the beginning. I mean, same letter in the beginning, right? Uh, then Kesura, as we know, it's a pause. Where is a pause? A metrical break or pause. Answer. Then, which of the following literary devices is not typically used in indicating the metrical structure of an Old English? What is not there? It is included, right? Alliteration is there, and assonance is there. Rhyme was not there in Old English, right? What is the likely origin date of Beowulf? Beowulf, we know, somewhere around this thing, right? Easy to answer. Which of the following is not a part of the plot? Beowulf defeats Grendel by tearing his arm off. That is right. Beowulf battles and kills Grendel's mother in her cave. That is also true. Beowulf receives a fatal wound after slaying a dragon. That is also true. Beowulf returns to England with gift from Danish king. That could be the wrong one. Yes. Beowulf does not return to England, but where he goes? To Geatland. Right. Then we have Beowulf is written in which dialect? Very important, West section. We already discussed, right? So easy to answer. Which of the following best describe the poetic style of Beowulf? Of course, we know there will be alliteration, there will be kenning. So our answer is pre-verse will not be there because it's an American way of writing poetry, which came far later, right? In the 19th or 18th, 19th century, in fact. Uh, Blank verse, of course, it started with our Milton, so definitely not. So easily you can answer. Couplet, our Chaucer and Dryden and Pope. What is the significance of Beowulf in European literary tradition? Known for rhymed epic? Definitely not. Oldest surviving European vernacular epic? Right? It is the first known Christian, not Christian, it's a pagan. But there is theme of Christianity. That doesn't make it a Christian epic poem, right? Is it? No. And it is the first epic written entirely in Latin. No, it was West section, right? Which of the following is true about Beowulf's significance in literary analysis? What is significance? Purely as Christian allegory, good verse, definitely. Purely not. When there is this kind, then you should. If there is Christian allegory, some elements are there as good and evil. It reflects both Germanic heroic tradition and Christian element. That is very, rational option that we can select. It lacks any Christian influence, remaining entirely pagan. It was not. It has some, not all, but some. Right? Not lack. It has. It focused primarily on political and social commentary. Definitely not. Okay, who produced a modern English translation of Beowulf. As we know, it is Himacine, and there is also one, this J.R.R. Tolkien. He also translated, but it's not the modern version, right? Okay. So, guys, that's all. We have done it. We have completed our session on Old English. I hope you like the class, and if you like it, gives me a, this thumb, right? And we'll just come tomorrow, same timing, and maybe I'll post the time before this time because I'm making notes for you all. So some time is not there right now, but from the next week everything will be settled, and we have a proper timetable. When is the class of what, right? So we have discussed so much today, and to the point note, not, you know फालतू का चीज़ हमारे पास नहीं है, right? एकदम to the point. And we have solved also PYQ. We also did some practice. So guys, this is done. I'll see you tomorrow. To the point note from the PYQ, and that will be enough for you. You don't have to go or wander everywhere. One course has everything. So in our course, what do we have? A live classes every single day, except Saturday and Sunday. We don't have class in 2 days, and we have what, PYQs. So many PYQs that you will love to solve. We have some, you know rapid fire or other mock test that you can do. And what else we have? Paper one, that is also to the point note. And if you know attend this paper one course, you will be able to answer 40 plus questions easily. And then what else we have? We have notes PDF that you can download. You might have received one PDF yesterday. That kind of note, to the point note, no other stuff to distract you. And to solve PYQ, there will be link in the notes itself. So one note is a kind of, full course for you. Notes there, YouTube video is also there if you are using the uh, that PDF. So everything is there, guys. You just have to click on the link and all. So even if you are not added in the app or any, don't worry. So guys, bye bye and have a good day. Okay, bye bye. And one more thing, please subscribe as soon as possible so you won't miss a single class. And after the class, I'll share a link in the group. You can just click and solve all the questions from PYQ also, and from for extra also for you, so you can have more practice into it. So thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye and have a great day.